Hello, welcome to the Bad Idea Factories channel. Who am I, you ask? I'm just an old friend of Mr. Factories.
I am the dark and cosmic void. All is wrapped in my cold, loving embrace. I see all, have lived through all, and when your abysmally short infantile life ends, I will continue past even the memory of your species, nay, your very planet's existence.
I've consulted for him on supply chain issues. Anyways, I have everything I could possibly want, but that doesn't mean I have experienced everything. And if you think about my name, well, the void or the abyss, it's usually silent. But I've seen so much, dreamed even more, and I want to share some stories. So get ready, you are about to hear a voice that has been collected from the void. Have you ever heard how this world was created? Everyone loves a Genesis, a good creation story. Well, here's one which, if I'm not mistaken, everyone but the original tellers have forgotten. And sadly, the world has forgotten them. Before the world was formed, there was the sun. He looked, and all he saw was light, for he was light, and his light revealed the shape and order of those which were with him in the beginning, but were slumbering in darkness. Because he knew himself, the light, he was the greatest of these primordial beings who needed his illumination to perceive their souls. There was no time, for all existed as the light spread and touched it. There existed in the darkness a creature of cold and fickle nature. It was not slumbering and delighted in being ever changing. The light touched this being, but in rebellion it continued to dance, and 1,000 bits of self forever falling, rising, coalescing, and breaking apart. This being has come to be known by many names, but the one which she is most fond of is rain. The sun and the rain were at first antagonistic to each other. The rain forever danced, catching the sun's light and scattering them into 1,000 refracted colors. The sun droned on forever, repeating the same monotonous actions. But in time, this hostility changed, first to grudging respect, then to admiration, and finally to affection. She brought excitement he didn't know he was craving. He revealed the stage of her performance, filling her with stability. The two joined, and then there were three. Plant was born, always growing, having a form of order, but ever spreading and changing. Yet still, Plant was, and remains, a child in need of the nourishment of both parents. But Plant is not the child of sun and rain which we want to discuss. There are many children who came after Plant, but the one we care about, the most terrifying and powerful one of all, is known as the Woliachee. Even amongst the spirits, deities of primordial creation and its siblings, the Woliachee is strange. In modern sensibilities, we would say it was a skeleton horse, but that's not quite accurate. While it's true the Woliachee had a single horse's skull as its head, it only had 2 legs, but then 3 tails, and 4 elongated and spindly human arms and hands. 5 eyes crowned its one head, and for a body it simply had 6 pairs of matching ribs. Everything else about the Woliachee was shifting, from the number of bones in its spine to other features that would appear and disappear. Wings sprout and fade. Bony spurs protrude from joints and are worn down to nothing. Horns and antlers will appear at the base of the neck, clash, and then fade. So while you always knew you were looking at the Woliachee, it was just a little different every single time. But its appearance wasn't all that was different. Sun, rain, and plant rejoiced in all their family. But when the Woliachee was born, Plant saw something different in it, something which scared it. And Plant, being so old and yet so very childlike and naive, voiced its thoughts in the presence of its parents that the Woliachee was the greatest of the children and that it would grow in power to eclipse even the sun. These fears were heard, considered, and then disregarded, as most advice from children is. The Woliachee was raised much like its siblings, in love and praise, for each sibling added to creation, growing and stretching to infinity, ever weaving into the endlessly spinning threads of observed reality. Soon everyone adored the Woliachee, and everyone was anxiously waiting to see what it would add. The Woliachee counted, and everything changed. At first, its counting was praised. This was new. This was exciting. Father Son saw that the counts which came for the Woliachee could be used to remember what had been illuminated. Mother Rain saw that the numbers would stretch endlessly like her cascading drops. Plant saw that numbers created variety, and there was an inherent joy in seeing just how high something measured could go. How tall can a tree grow? How deep can its roots dig? How many leaves will fall? Two of Sun's oldest companions were Earth and Moon. Earth was always watchful of Sun, circling in an effort to find his affection, and the Moon delighted in spinning between them and around the Earth. The Earth and Moon used to drift lazily through space, varying their orbit and rotational speed according to their whims, until the Woliachee saw a full moon and counted to 12. Suddenly, the Earth was driven to circle the sun, and the moon raced at a steady speed. They tried to hasten or slow down, but they couldn't. Their rotations had been numbered, and they were powerless to disobey. Sun finally saw what the Woliachee was then. Though it was born from his light's order and rain's chaos, it was ever the child of its father, and just as the sun's light forced shape on the formless, the Woliachee's numbers would force order on the chaos. In this way, it would become greater and in control of everything. The others feared and begged Sun and Rain to fix their mistake, to banish the Woliachee to the darkness where it could not see and thus not count, or to destroy it entirely. But the parents wouldn't. If they set the precedent of killing one inconvenient child, then what about the next that grows too much or commits a similar offense? They watched and waited and fretted. And while they indecisively pondered, the Woliachee counted. It counted everything with ever-expanding numbers. Numbers became patterns, patterns became systems, and reality was gradually becoming more and more firm. It counted time, and with that, everything's days became numbered. This is what convinced Sun and Rain to finally act. Now that their doom and the doom of all their children was sealed, they approached the Woliachee and gave it a task. Earth was comprised of many parts. Rain would collect in great bodies and carry the smallest parts to the Woliachee. They would call this sand, and it would be the Woliachee's task to number all the grains of sand and not count anything else until this task was done. The Woliachee readily agreed. It did not know deception, only quantification. As the Woliachee counted what its mother brought, Plant, fearful of the task's completion, dug into earth and broke her. Slowly, subtly, so no one would notice, it created more and more grains of sand, so the task would delay, much to the pain of the planet. But Earth is no longer eternal like it was before the advent of numbers. Someday, Plant's roots will grind down the last of the earth. The Woliachee will count the last grain of sand, and looking up from its task, it will see that there is no more earth or sibling plant, and soon the end of days it counted approaches. Depressing, isn't it? That one with so much potential is shackled by mind-numbingly menial work, that instead of helping the being who can literally change the fabric of reality, the petty desire to stay elevated above it instead creates enemies and false friends. But this is not all. There's one more part to this story. You see, the Woliachee sits on an uncounted beach, and with one hand it gathers a clump of sand, with another it plucks a grain and drops into a third waiting palm. But sand is coarse, rough, abrasive, even if it is small, and the Woliachee is bone. It doesn't happen very often, but frequently a piece of the Woliachee gets chipped off with the grain it is counting. This small piece becomes a human. It does according to its nature. It orders the world around it. As a piece of the Woliachee, this human is hated by the earth and other forces beyond comprehension. Just as they give your progenitor the mind-numbing task of counting sand, they give each human an infuriating list of tasks to do in its days. Gather food, plow, farm, mine, count, qualify, sleep, drink, reproduce, compete. Do you ever feel like you are capable of so much more? You are. But the universe doesn't want you realizing this. It's scared of what you might do, the systems your order might bring. But that's okay, because remember, you were created from a falling grain of sand chipping your whole self. That grain is still falling, falling through birthdays, victory, defeat, shame, and revelry. One day it will stop, and so will you. However, death is not an end. It is just an arrival at the count. And that piece of the Woliachee, which you are, eventually makes its way back to the whole. Did the forces that be really think they could stop you by killing you? The arrival at the number of your days is your domain, the domain of the Woliachee. It is your completion, the reacquisition of your power. There's a lot more to count. Who knows? Maybe there will be something to count even after time's last moments run out. And here was the final teaching of those people forgotten so long ago. What are you? You are the chaos of rain coursing through your veins, the light of the sun bringing reason and sight. You are a horror, shaping existence to your whim. You are not complete, but you are also not alone. So dance, build, and struggle, for that is what it means to be human, until all people are joined as one once again. And maybe, if you are lucky, on a dark night when the spirits come out to torment and play, you may find yourself on an abandoned shoreline. And maybe, if you walk the silver beach, you may see it, the Woliachee, endlessly patient, squatting and counting each grain, each atom in each grain, each particle in each atom, each vibration of causality in each particle. I do not know what it would say to you or what you could say to it, but don't be afraid. I imagine it would like just one kind word, or 2 rhymes, or 3 lines of a poem, or 4 things you've learned. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun, and if you enjoyed it enough, please rest assured there will be more arcane cosmic knowledge coming shortly. Now, toodaloo, sweetheart. Until next time, I'll be counting the days to our reunion with bated breath.